Hi, I'm Jan.
Hi, I'm Brandy. Welcome to our first premiere coming up of HADES on Facebook page, Christ Our Healer. Stay tuned for that broadcast. The first show is going to be dealing with widowhood. We're both widows. What you think about that, sis?
Oh, what I think? I have a lot of thought about that. But what I'm really thinking is, can I start dating again? Or is it too soon?
Well, who are you asking? I mean, ultimately, that's your choice.
Absolutely.
We can get all the advice and opinions in the world, but an opinion is just that. It's their opinion.
That's true.
So whose choice is it really? It's yours.
Absolutely.
Take it to God. Do the natural and the spiritual. Line it up and move forward.
Yeah, but what if there's really not a lot of people to date in the church, though?
Now, see, that's a whole nother conversation. They're going to definitely have to stay tuned for that because now I'm just going to leave that right there.
Well, ladies, let's talk about it. Meet us on December, whatever week that is.
Whatever week that is. The second week in December. Meet us then. The second week of December. Stay tuned. This is going to be something serious. We're dealing with real issues, being real people, whether we're saved or unsaved. This hits a lot of us. So stay tuned because we have a lot to discuss. You do not want to miss this. Trust me, you do not want to miss this. HADES.
We'll see you there.
Hello, my name is Brandy.
Hi, I'm Jan. Thank you for tuning into our show, HADES. On this first episode, we're going to talk about being a single widow and how the challenges we face as being single widows, wanting to date again, challenges with sex, and how to abstain, and how do we make it through those difficult times during mourning seasons. You don't want to miss out on this episode. Please tune in.
Hello. Hello. Great evening, everyone. It has just been a day. Give us one moment. We do apologize. We've had some issues just getting started on today. But welcome to HADES. And that's exactly what it is tonight. HADES. It's just one of them type of nights. My co-team member will be on her way in just one moment where we're going to go ahead and get started. Tonight, we're going to be dealing with widowhood. And being a widow, it's not easy. It's one of them journeys that either you're going to survive or you're going to fail. There's no in between. So either you're going to live or you're going to die. Dealing with widowhood, I've been a widow now for quite so many years, not as many as my partner here that's joining right now. Just come on in so that they can see us.
Hello. Sorry, everyone.
You're fine. Come on in.
All right. Turn this way.
And so let us introduce ourselves and we'll get going. I'm Brandy.
And I'm Jan.
Welcome to HADES.
And like she said, it's been one of those nights, one of those weeks, HADES.
Okay, so go ahead, talk about it.
Yeah, so I heard you kind of opening up there and you were talking about being a widow. And I think it's kind of best to let people know kind of maybe give them a little bit about, how we met our husbands,
Yes.
when
Go
we
ahead.
became widows,
Mhm.
and so on, just to kind of give them a little background.
Yes.
So it's funny because me, Brandy, and a few other young ladies, we were friends for years, prayer partners, and so forth.
Yes.
And out of the group, I was the last one to be married, but the first one widowed out of all of us. And so just kind of brief story about how me and Steve met, which is my late husband's name. His name was Steve. Me and Steve, of course, we met through church. We were friends at first. And he was actually just coming out of he was in the midst of a separation and going through a divorce at the time we met. And I would often, while he was going through that season, he happened to be at our church because he was at a previous church before. And sorry, trying to fix this shirt here, but well, Hades. But he ended up at our church. I had never met him before in my life, never seen him. And I know a lot of people out of the city just from being raised up in the church. So I knew a lot of people, but I didn't know. Hey, from Dallas.
Hello,
thank
Dallas,
you for tuning
Texas.
in.
Yes.
Thank you for your support.
Yes.
And yes, Mom, we're going to get it together.
We're working on it.
Yes. Good evening. Good evening
Yes,
to everyone coming in. Thank you for coming
good
in.
evening.
And like I was saying, Steve, we met and we were friends, and I would actually send him out to singles conferences to meet different people because he was kind of a homebody and he was going through it. So I'm like, oh, go meet somebody, oh, let me tell you about this singles conference, and not knowing the whole time that part. So, we ended up eventually God showed me or let me know in 2011 that I was going to be getting married. And I'm like, well, to who? Because we were in a small church. It was probably less than 15 of us in the church, literally. And most everyone was married or they were friends already. So I'm like, well, okay. And I know him. So, oh, Jesus, is somebody going to be coming? Where they at? So eventually he unveiled it to the both of us that we were to be together. And we got married in 2011. We officially dated maybe twice, maybe over a span of 3 months, if that. I don't even think it was that long. And he asked me to marry him, and we got married 2 weeks after he proposed. And I know that sounds funny, but when you're saved and you're trying to stay saved, y'all know what I'm talking about. I don't have time for a long courtship, but we'll talk about that a little bit later too. But anyway, me and Steve were married for 5.5 years. We were a blended family. So he came with one daughter. I came in with 2 daughters, and then we have one together. And Steve went through a situation. He had lupus. He fell and, had a spinal cord injury. He was a minister. So he would go with our pastor to minister to the men down in the Putnamville prison. And one day I remember him coming home that evening, and it was so, I won't say funny, but it was prophesied to me a month ago that God was getting ready to do some things in my life that was going to change my life for the better. But he didn't tell me about this middle part. So when Steve, once he went to church, we went to church that day, had a great time. He was feeling well, led the prayer. And then when he came home that evening, I was coming home from the prison ministry. He had an epileptic seizure, fell in the hallway of our home at that time, hit his head into the wall and broke his neck in 3 places. Which paralyzed him. And at that time, Ava was 8 months old. My baby girl was 8 months old. So suddenly overnight, my life shifted from being a young wife and a new mother again to being a caretaker and a caregiver. And so, there were many things that we went through that. But with Steve, it was just, I don't want to go too much into the detail, but we were married for 5.5 years. And and he ended up passing after Valentine's Day in 2017, which is my favorite holiday. So God allowed him to live through the holiday. We were able to express our love to one another. And then he was taken. But I'd like to also share a little bit about, and I'll give Sister Brandy some time because I know we don't want to be here hours and hours and hours because we can both talk. But he ended up, before he passed, God had revealed to me that he was going to take him. And at that particular season in my life, I remember we were, the day what happened to him is he became septic at the hospital, or actually at a nursing home he was staying at in the interim before he was going to be transferred home with us. And because the nursing staff at that time did not change him, the stool got into a open bed sore that he had. So this is why it's so important to make sure you're checking on your relatives. If you have people in the hospital, check on them, see how they're doing. Don't just dump them in there and leave them. Go and check them. And I was literally at the hospital, the rehab, the facilities, literally every day for 5.5 months straight, and I still missed it. And so so I ended up becoming septic. And I remember the doctor came in and had the speech with us, if things turn for the worse, how do you want us to go? Do you want palliative care, or do you want to put him back on a ventilator? And at that time, I said, well, let's talk to him, see what he thinks. And they said, well, we're going to leave that to you, because he's not really sure. And so when the doctor left the room, I looked over at Steve and I said, well, Steve, I said, you hear what they're saying, correct? And he was like, yeah, I do. I said, so what are your thoughts? What do you want me to do? And he said, well, I'm not going anywhere right now because I have work to do. That's what God told me. And what he was referring to is during the first 30 days of him being hospitalized after the injury, he flatlined 4 times. And in one of those occasions, he said he died. He said, I saw myself in the casket. He said, you had planned the funeral. He said, but I heard God speak and said, you're not going anywhere because you've got work to do. And so we thought that meant he was going to be set free. God was going to take him out of the hospital. He was going to come home, et cetera, et cetera. But he actually did his work from the hospital, because he ministered to every person that came in that room, every doctor, every visitor. He preached to them the gospel. He shared with them the gospel and his testimony and experience. And so when he brought this up at the time, the Spirit of God reminded me, he said, he's already done his work. And so I turned to him, I said, well, babe, I said, you've already done your work. Look at all the people you've ministered to in the hospital. Look at the people you minister to when you go to the prison. Look at those people's lives that you impacted.
That's right.
And he kind of looked at me. He said, okay. And he sat back. And that night, we actually were scheduled to go to nursing home, because we used to do nursing home ministry as well, too. So I went and with the team of girls, and I'm telling you, the Spirit of God was just over me that night. I preached, I sang, we were just flowing. The power of God was giving me strength. And he tells us that the joy of our Lord is our strength.
That's right.
And a lot of times when I was down and I would go to minister to others, that joy was stirred up on the inside of me.
That's right.
So when I got done delivering that word and I went home that night, and I actually stopped back again at the hospital, let him know how things went. And then I went home that evening around 11 o'clock that night. The Lord kept putting in my soul that song, God Is My Everything, by Chicago Mass Choir. In the lyrics says, he's my joy in sorrow. He's my hope for tomorrow. And I said, well, Jesus, let me get up out of this bed and let me go listen to this song so I can get this out of my spirit. I can go to bed, because I am tired. And the moment I began to listen to that song, the spirit of praise hit me, and I began to pick them up and put them down in my living room. And as I was dancing, I began to speak to the Lord. I said, Lord, I need to know. I said, what's going to happen with Steve? I said, is he going to live or is he going to die? And the Lord allowed me to dance some more before he let me know. He said, I'm going to heal him, but it's not the way that you were praying and expecting for. Right. And we've got to realize that God has a sovereign will. Sometimes we want to keep people on earth forever, but we don't know that conversation that people have had with God between them. And there were some conversations that Steve had with God that I wasn't privy to. So when God told me that, I broke. And I said, well, Lord, I didn't break quite yet. I said, well, Lord, I hear you. I said, but I need you to speak plain to me, because you know how I am, Jesus. I need it plain. I don't need no divine revelation. I need divine clarification right now. And I said, Lord, I just need you to make it plain.
That's right.
And he said, I'm going to take him. And that's when I broke. I lost it. I had to put a sofa pillow over my mouth to keep the kids from hearing me because I hollered so loud. But, even after that, God told me something in that midst of my crying, because I literally begged and pleaded God for Steve's life from midnight that night to 5 o'clock that morning, I was on my face asking God to turn this situation around, reminding him of his healing power.
Right.
And God was yet reminding me of how much he loved Steve, and how, even though we all loved him on this side of earth, his love for Steve was so much greater than the love that we could even have all combined, and that he told me he was going to take care of him. And then one thing that got me, that really stood out to me, that really just kind of sealed the deal for me, God told me, he said, Jan, he said, I never promised you that man would not leave you, but I myself have said that I will never leave you nor forsake you, but I need you to trust me. And I said, God, I don't know if I said, I trust you for a lot of things. I said, but this one right here, I don't know.
All right.
Because
now.
it was new. And I had to figure
right.
out, how am I going to tell my children this? How am I going to tell my in-laws? They already mad. So how am I going to tell them? How am I going to tell them? They've already thinking that I'm giving up on him. How am I going to, Lord, I've never had to bury anybody. I'm 37 years old. I'm 38 at the time. I got a brand new baby. God, how am I going to manage this? And I don't know about you, Brandy, but I know even after we had the funeral, people were saying, they were saying, because I did rejoice at the memorial. Well,
they didn't understand.
No, and they didn't think, they thought I wasn't, they didn't think I was grieving because I didn't cry at the memorial. Ooh. But it was like, you know what? But where were you? You didn't see the times I was crying. Every night I had to go home to an empty bed. And I didn't. I had to leave my husband in the care of somebody else and pray that God, that they would take care of him. And I had to go home. And I was, so, and then even then people try to take, well, you guys were only married 5.5 years. Well, what does that mean? Can you not miss them? Like, can you not? So my love for him is even lesser because of the fact I didn't grieve like you guys are grieving, because it was a shock to you all. But God had prepared me. And I thank God for that security as believers, that God never blindsides us with things. Even if we may miss the signs, God is always preparing us for things that are to come. He prepared me, but he didn't tell me the exact day, because it was 4 days later after he had showed me he was going to take Steve. It was 4 days before Steve actually took his last breath. Mm-hmm. And so, how was your experience? I know you've gone through the same thing, and
it's been a journey. It's been a journey, but just listening to what Sis was saying, it's so true. Prior to Jimmy leaving this world, we were married for 18.5 years. When I met Jimmy, I was 25, and Jimmy had some years on me. And so that was a battle from the beginning that we had to overcome. But I was just listening to Sis, and we can't be selfish individuals, because Jimmy left when I released him. Mm-hmm. And I want to share that just from the beginning, because sometimes we can be selfish and we hold on to people, and they're here because of us. They're holding on and fighting because of us, but they're suffering.
Say that.
And so we have to know when to let them go. And Jimmy suffered in battle for 7 years with his health. The last 4 years of his health was hell. We didn't have any cure, medically speaking. We had ran out of every resource there was. I had ran out of every resource. I would pray for this man from the crown of his head to the sole of his feet. I would anoint this man and lay him prostrate across the bed, just anointing him and crying out and pleading to God. I've been there. I did that. So we did the natural, we did the spiritual, we did the holistic, you name it, we done it. We did acupuncture, we did Chinese remedies, we did them all. And when it got to the point, now keep in mind, he suffered for 7. The last 4 was torment because he was in pain and we had no cure. So the doctors told us 3 times that he was going to leave here, and we had to prepare. 3 times. The first time that we was told, I got to praying, you would have thought I was crazy. And that's how I went. I went into prayer, and I went to, in the natural, I knew how to stand my ground. In the spiritual, I yet know how to stand my ground. I understand what spiritual warfare is. And so what I had to do was intercede on his behalf, and God extended the time. The second time, the physicians told us, God extended the time. That last time, which was the 3rd time, was right at the holiday season. And he had went in for other conditions because he had so many health conditions that he was just getting attacked one after the other. And so that time while he was in the hospital, because of COVID, we only could see and communicate through technology. That was it. Man. So you're telling me by phone on a conference call that he's going to die in the hospital and he's not coming home this time. So every other time I was at his bedside, his beck and call, I instructed the providers, I instructed the nurses, I instructed anyone that was doing any type of care to my spouse, anyone. And so the physicians was calling me for the advice. The physicians was calling me on how to direct his care and what plan and what path to take. So we battled and we battled. So after I got that call, Jimmy was on the phone. I called up a few warriors. I called up the pastor and wife and different ones because it was time to intercede on a different level. And as me and Jimmy talk, I told him, I said, you don't have to worry about it because you're not going to die in there. And he said, I'm not. He said, I'm coming home. I said, yes, you're coming home. So God did just that. He did not die in the hospital. He was released and he came home. I picked him up. Now, when I picked him up and he came home, God gave him almost 2 good weeks in the house with us. Almost 2 good weeks. But prior to him leaving here, we got everything in order. And when I say everything in order, because when you're going through preparatory grief and when you're going through anticipatory grief, you got to understand what those are, because we're not talking conventional grief. Conventional grief, they're gone. That's the normal grief that most people know, most people understand, and they go through all the different stages. The grief that I want to talk about is the grief that's called anticipatory grief and preparatory grief. That preparatory grief is the grief for the person that's going through the process to depart from this place. Yes. That's the preparatory grief. Now, the person that's there with them is the anticipatory person that's going through the anticipatory grief. So while they're prepping to depart, we have to anticipate no matter how long it takes. So you're going through grief with them. So before they ever leave this world, you're going through preparatory grief, you're going through anticipatory grief before conventional grief even takes place. So prior to Jimmy leaving, not only was I grieving for 7 years because I had to go through with him, but the last 4, I had to be the person that was dealing with anticipatory grief while he was dealing with preparatory grief. So while that man was prepping and putting things in order and giving me orders, I had to anticipate his death. Y'all not hearing what I'm saying? So when people don't understand why we look as if we can go on, it's because we've been grieving prior to them leaving this world. That's it. Y'all got to understand what we're saying. Preparatory grief. It's all that time that person is anticipating leaving this world. Anticipatory grief. It's all the time that we're anticipating them leaving this world while we're holding on, fasting and praying and seeking God. And keeping from losing our minds and doubting and questioning God. Now, God, where are you? When I've done and interceded on behalf of all these other people and you raised them up. God, where are you? When I have stood in a gap for people and I seen you raise them up. God, where are you now that it's me? That's it. They're not understanding when we're going through these seasons and we're trying to keep our right mind and keep a smile on our face and look good all at the same time. I know that's right. What you want us to look like we down and out? Now, if we were looking down and out, the people would have been fine with that. But because we didn't look down and out and beat up and drugged through hell, Hades, and drugged through hell, then they're not understanding what we have been through. All that praying I was doing for all them years, all that interceding and that fasting on behalf of my spouse, keeping him here. Don't you know, he had reached out to 3 individuals, a brother, a friend, and a cousin. He reached out to all 3 of them individuals, talking to them about everything he had put in place and how he was lining up things. But he told them not to talk to me about it until the correct timing.
Yes, timing is everything.
Okay, he talked to our now 18-year-old son that was 17 at the time. He talked to him and went through everything with him. He walked him through our garage and explained everything in that garage. He walked him through this house and told him how things work. He explained everything to him at the time he was 17. Never said one word to me. My son did not tell me anything they talked about until after his father had passed, and it was 2 months past the time. 2 months past the time after his father died. Wow. He held all that in. He even told his son and prepped his son, which is our son, for me to remarry. Now, this is something I know nothing of. When my son told me about this stuff, I immediately put him into counseling. Immediately put him in counseling because I did not need him to have psychological damage.
Yes.
And I didn't want him to lose his intellectual identity.
Yeah.
Y'all understand what I'm saying? And so not only did I put him in counseling, but I put me in counseling. I counsel and I put myself in counseling. And so it was something because all this time of me interceding in, every time he was at the verge of giving up, and I can sense, and he was gasping for air, or his oxygen wasn't flowing right, or what have you, I got busy. I didn't just do the natural, I did the spiritual too. And so after a while, I would go off because I was crying so hard because I was breaking internally and I couldn't get a grip to the world that was happening around me. Now, in the public eye, girl was bad. Girl was strong. You couldn't see that I was going through internally.
Yes.
But in private, I was just breaking. And so it was on a Sunday. And on that Sunday, we had service. Now, we were doing 2 ministries prior to him leaving. That's another talk show. So at the time, what was happening was I had moved fellowship from the place that I had been for the 18 years that I was married to Jimmy. And so Jimmy remained there. And so at that time, he had gave me the release because prior to him leaving, I asked him to release me from that ministry because I like to do things decent and in order for inquiring minds that want to know. So
help them out.
Ain't that what it is? Let's help them out. So as that time came on that Sunday, I set up his technology for Greater Faith House of Prayer with Pastor Reeves now. Set up the technology. So I sat there with him while he did his service. Then I went into ours and set ours up and everything. And so we had 2 services going. And so he was able to participate in both. So after the service, he asked me for a certain breakfast. He said, I want you to cook me this, and this. And I'm thinking to myself now, he know me when it comes to the diet, I'm strict. And so I didn't say anything, you all. Listen to me. I didn't give no back talk. I didn't say nothing. I just did as the man asked, not realizing the flow of God. Now follow me. I did as he asked me to do. Took it down there, prepared his tray, as I did always, prepared his food, prepared his meds, had everything laid out, made sure everything was to his satisfaction as he asked. Okay? Now, keep in mind, Sunday morning services to end it. Lunchtime is here. We're doing everything we need. All of a sudden, we get into an argument. When we get into this argument, I broke. He looked at me after I had to keep changing his clothing because his body wasn't doing like it used to. He always needed my assistance. So I changed his attire 3 times in just a matter of hours. And so he looked at me that last time and he said, "Are you tired?" Every other time that man would ask me, was I tired? I would lie. And I'm just going to keep it real. I would lie because I would say no. And I would start speaking the word of God. And I would start speaking scripture. And I would speak encouragement to him because I wanted him to live and not die. Negativity causes death. Positivity gives life.
Yes.
You better hear what I'm saying. It gives life.
Yes. Oh my God.
And so I'm going to give it back to Sus here in just a minute. It gives life. And so what had happened was when he asked me, I couldn't lie this time. And as the tears rolled down my face, and I said, yes, I'm tired, babe. He looked at me and he said, I'm tired. I broke because I said, Lord, if I would have asked him probably a while ago if he was tired, instead of being selfish and keep interceding while he was yet suffering. We cannot hold on to people when their time is finished. My season had ended. That 18 and a half years, look, God knew what he was doing. When I told him that I was tired and I no longer lied, Jimmy left the same day at 3 p.m. Wow. Jimmy left the same day at 3 p.m. Y'all got to understand what I'm saying. Y'all got to understand what I'm saying. Now, I'm married for 18 and a half years. My spouse battled with his health for 7 years. The last 4 years, he was in pain every single day, and we had no cure. Do you understand the psychological damage that can cause to a woman of God that know God is real and he could do anything but fail? Do you understand the psychological damage? When you see him moving on behalf of everybody else and yours is still battling, that will affect you mentally. It will. And I look and I said, sometimes we get so deep because we want to court and date for a year and 2 years and 3 years. The devil is alive. Well, Hades. You're seeing it, you're shacking, you're laying together and everything else. And then you're talking about we just dating. That's not dating. There is a difference in dating and courting. Absolutely. There's a big difference. I'm going to let Soots talk about it. But what I want to share is what happened was I met that man. We went on one date and we dated for 6 months, which was connected to courting. 6 months. One day, 6 months. The dating instantly flipped to courting. When he proposed to me, I even told the man, you don't even know me. And I still said yes. But listen to me.
I know that's right.
But listen to me.
Yes.
Listen to me. God will not fail us when you line up with him.
Yes.
And the thing is, it went from 6 months to 18 and a half years.
Look at that.
Now, some have dated, courted, kicked it, you know, whatever you want to call it, for years, and you still don't have a marriage. You cannot start off a relationship on a note that's improper, and in the middle of it, you want to flip the script.
Yeah, it doesn't work that way.
That's not how it works. That's not how it works. Start off from the beginning, being direct, honest, open, and talk about it.
Yes.
I'm not talking about in the bedroom. Because in the bedroom, that's not talking. Mentally, you're not even connected. That's a whole nother conversation. Yes. But we're here to talk about it because this is Hades.
Yes, it is.
So we're here to talk about it, but I'm going to let Sus take it from right there.
I don't know how to jump in from here. I'm so busy. I'm like, feed me. Because it was so powerful what you said about that positivity and that negative.
Yes.
I had to put people out of the hospital.
I did, yes.
Because they wanted to come in and speak death. And these were not only unsaved people, these were saved people that came in. Oh, I hope he's going to be okay. I said, no,
got to go.
Absolutely. I put them out.
You got to
put them out. I said, because we believe God here. And I can't have you speaking and accelerating something that God had not given me yet revelation on.
That's it.
So, and you have to protect. That is part of loving and protecting your spouse.
Yes.
You don't let any and everybody speak any and everything over your
do
family,
not. No, you do
over
not.
your spouses, and especially in traumatic events like that.
Yes.
Because, you know, we are both young women, both
Yes.
in our early 40s.
Yes. I'm 44.
Hey, 43
Woo!
and loving it. And I'm telling you, we never, you know, when I walked down the aisle at 38 years old, well, no, I was 33, 32 or 33 when I got married.
Yeah, it was in
it was old.
Yeah.
I was old. but I'm gonna be honest with you, I really wasn't at a point where I was looking for marriage in my life. I was at my point in my stage in life. I'm like, Lord, if we can just keep me saved and keep me holy, we'll be doing good.
And in the right mind.
Yes, Lord Jesus.
Don't forget that.
Always.
Yes.
And it's and that was the year that God said, well, you're going to be married this year. And it's like, oh, okay. And like you said, it shouldn't take, and I know we flipped this thing kind of quick here.
Yes, we did.
But we have to know that, you know, the things that we say when we, even when dating, like you said, it, to me, and I know we kind of jumped the gun because we're supposed to be talking about widowhood, and we are.
This is all connected because we're still widows.
And we're single again. So now we're having to learn how to navigate. And that's some of the things, because I had, and you were talking about how it affects your psychological mind.
Yes.
I thought about how it even affected my faith to some degree, because when those nights came where I was lonely, and when I began to have reminisce about my husband, and there was nobody there to reminisce properly with,
that's right.
I became distraught in my spirit, and I began to cry out to God, well, God, you the one took him.
That's
now,
right.
And you're asking me to be celibate. You're asking me to be abstinent. Abstinent really is the proper term.
Yes, it is.
You're asking me to be abstinent.
That's right.
And it was hard for me to go through that, because God, when you're used to, even though I was married only for 5.5 years, when you get used to being able to have intimacy.
It's the appetite.
Yeah,
it's the appetite.
Yes.
That's come on now, y'all. Y'all know what she's talking about.
Absolutely.
For all of you that's married, and for all of you that's shacking, for all of you that's just living how you want to live, and you're enjoying the benefits that a lot of married people are not enjoying. You know what we're talking about. Go ahead.
Come on, well, Hades.
Okay.
Because I'm telling you, it was a battle, and I'm like, well, God. I'm like, I'm struggling here in my flesh. God, you know, I like what I like.
That's it.
And God, I need you to help me, because now I'm having to learn how to, I have to pray again through all these urges that I'm getting. I have to get up. I'm not taking nobody's cold shower. I'm gonna have to get up and walk or pray and I had to learn how to be single again, because when you think about widowhood, you're not just losing your spouse.
No, you're not.
That's why I think the pain is so great too.
Yes.
Because you're losing your future.
Yes.
You're losing those future plans you had.
Yes.
Well, I ain't gonna say you lose your future, because God had a future destinated for you long before the marriage came.
Yes.
So your destiny is never tied into one individual.
But they get what you're saying, sis, because that man is our covering.
He is.
That man is our covering.
Yes.
And so when you're going through things in life, they are there to cover us and to protect us. So we lost that protection. We lost that natural covering. That's what sis is saying.
Yes.
That's what we lost. Widowhood, I mean, all of the financial responsibility falls on our shoulder.
Yes.
The burying process, our shoulders.
Yes.
We had to live.
Yes.
In the midst of them leaving, our season is not finished.
No way.
Their season was finished.
And see, that's huge, because a lot of times when I'm telling you, when I walked down the aisle at 32 years old, I wasn't after I said I do, I wasn't expecting to be burying my husband in 5.5 years after I said I do.
I didn't expect to have to be single again, because being a widow, you're single again.
Yes.
And I literally had to go take classes. I'm in school full time. I work full time.
Yeah, same here. Yeah.
We're in school full time. We work full time.
Full-time parents.
Full-time
employees.
And employees, everything. We wear several hats. And we yet took the time, both of us, and started taking courses on how to date, how to court, what it entails. Why? Because this is new.
It is. And actually, you know what? And I love God, because God never wastes anything of our lives. Now, see, because before I got married, I was a single mother for 14 years. So when I was young, I had my first daughter at 20 years old. And as a young person, I wasn't saved at the time, but because I was raised in a household of faith, I was raised in a Pentecostal household, I carried a lot of shame. I carried a lot of, because of the fact that I had a child out of wedlock, and then after I got saved, okay, we break this one down. I ended up, going through a hard season in my life, waiting on somebody for 3 years that I thought was going to marry me, that was saved in the church, and found out he was just kind of stringing me along and didn't have the courage, I'll say that, to speak up and say that I wasn't the one. Exactly. And I didn't have the courage or the self-esteem to speak up and cause him, put a demand on kind of, hey, you need to tell me what's going on, to be honest with me. And so because I didn't do that, I ended up going through a particular season in my life where my heart became broken, and I ended up leaving God for a space of time because I felt like God had, and poor God, because he gets the blunt of everything, of all of our poor decisions. And I had to go back and examine myself and say, well, now what in the world, even when I was out in the world, I never put up with certain things from men. And so now I came into church and I didn't got, no, I ain't lost that. But I had to go back and I had to really examine myself.
That's right.
And because I went through that situation, I ended up backsliding. Yep. I became pregnant again. And this was after I was already I wasn't ordained, but I was an evangelist. I knew my call. I was out serving in the community. I was out preaching the gospel in the nursing home, the juvenile center. I was doing the Meals on Wheels delivery. I was singing in the choir. I held several leadership positions at the church I was under. I was the prayer chaplain for the women's group, for the choir.
You know what, sis? And pause right there for a moment.
Go for it.
If you all just heard everything she said, she named a list of all these things she was doing in ministry, and she was yet hurting.
Yes.
That's the problem. And see, I can relate. And for a season, we did not even talk or communicate. We went through a season that we didn't even know what was going on in each other's life at all. Now, you're talking about two women that were close, and then we started going through life. Issues came up, and for a season we was apart. Now, I listened to my sister because I myself, same thing. Not only was I expiring minister, but before I left the ministry I came from, I was an elder, and I was in eldership position. So I preach, I teach, I counsel, I minister. I did the nursing home. I was a choir director. I sung in a choir. I led the choir. Let's see. I did the battered women's shelter ministry over at the Julian Center. Let's see. I did the youth choir. I did the children choir. I did the praise day, and I worked with the praise team. I helped at the usher board. I worked on the door. I mean, I can go on and on and on. And all this stuff that we were doing, I mean, and just out in the community, but we were hurting, sitting in God's house.
Yes, because a lot of times we don't believe God is, concerned about our natural. We think that we have boxed God into an ideal born through tradition and a lot of being overly religious, that we think God is just concerned if we're shouting, if we're dancing. No, God's concerned about your love life. He's concerned about who you're connecting with. He's concerned with your heart. He's concerned with your finances. Everything is spiritual. There is no difference between the sacred and the secular. All of it is sacred to God.
And if you're wondering how this connects with widowhood, that's because we're living this.
Yes. And I was going to say too, even, how God never wastes anything.
Nothing.
Because after being all that, and I had the second child out of wedlock after being saved, and I ended up leaving from God, but God used, and I left God for a space of time, and I went through some things which we're going to talk about later in our shows, but I went through a period where I was addicted to pornography. I had a period in time, I became suicidal. It was homicide. I had struggled with homicidal thoughts. I went through depression because of all these things, all these heartbreaks. And like you said, not allowing God to come in and heal me. So when I came back to God and I was going through widowhood. God,
That's right.
and God, this is how I love God. He will take the least likely person, because oh my God, I want to say some stuff. Matter of fact, I'm getting ready to say it because we think, oh my God, this person has promiscuous past, because I had that too. And the world says you can't take a hoe and make her a housewife. Well, I'm gonna tell you, I'm a living witness. God will take a whore and teach her how, and train her how to be a lady. And
wait a minute, so wait a minute. Are y'all ready?
Yes.
Are y'all really
ready?
ready?
Hades, well, get ready. Because God will take the least. Matter of fact, that's my favorite scripture over in 1 Corinthians. He said he chose the base things of the world to confound those things which are mighty. Ooh. And so God took me out of my mess. And one of my other favorite scriptures is over in Isaiah, where he said, my ear is not deaf that I cannot hear you, nor is my hand shortened that I can't save. And I know I reversed those two. But when he said those things, and people said those things, God not only brought me back out of my mess, but God gave me a preacher for a husband. Now he said, while some were talking about me, he would put me up with a preacher, because he had to match the level of anointing that was on my life.
All right now,
he couldn't come up less.
All right now,
but I'm telling you, when I say God doesn't waste anything, God took my life, took my shame, my guilt over being a single parent. And then God said, wait a minute. He said, you're a widow now. He said, but everything that you went through as a single person set you up now that you're able to stand as a widow.
And not fail.
Yes, because I had to take you now, because you felt like the thing that caused you the greatest shame and brokenness, and what caused people to reject you was the thing I was using to set you up. To be able to stand for now, you can be able to be an impact for somebody else. So don't ever despise what you go through, and don't ever think that you're behind schedule and behind time, because it looks like, oh my God, everybody else is passing me up in life because I made X, Y, and Z mistakes. How am I going to ever catch up? How am I going to build my relationship up with God? Well, let me tell you something, because God said about the woman in the Bible, he said the one that has been forgiven much, loves much.
All right.
And I've been forgiven much. And I had to go back, because God brought me out of some things that I, was ashamed of, some things I didn't want to not have to face. And it took me a while, because sometimes we try to save face, we try to stand back, because and we do some things that are offensive, and we don't know how to recover. But that's part of our series, to let you know you can recover from anything. And I love God for that, because on the days I could have gave up on myself and wanted to give up on myself, and I said, to heck with God. I said, to heck with ministry, to heck with the people of God. I went through a phase, but God brought me back in. And when I know we're still talking about widowhood, but God allowed us God never wastes any part of our lives.
No, he
and
does
like
not.
You said, he took those things.
Yes, he did.
And now I'm like, okay, God, I can stand. I can make it, because I was a single mother.
Yes, you was.
And now he's like, well, I'm now, and not even, because he can keep us even now.
Yes, he can.
Because, and when we talk about being saved, girl, I know you want
to
talk about
where
you fit
girl,
in.
Okay. But she's telling the truth, you all.
Yes.
She's telling the truth.
And,
my God, go.
And there were nights I struggled after Steve passed, and I'm like, Jesus, these feelings, I haven't had to with that thing. God, I need you to hold me.
That's right.
And I need you to help me to be in a widowhood.
Teach right there, sis.
Yes.
Stop right there and teach, because somebody needs that.
Yes.
We got to break that down, because the biggest part in widowhood is how to move forward.
Yes.
That's the biggest part in widowhood, how to move forward. That's what you got to tell them, how you overcame it. And, we really got to take the time and just understand how we get to the next level.
Yes.
We really do. Yes, we did. But we getting ready to wrap this up. We're getting ready to bring it to a close. This was our first show.
Yes.
The first premiere of Well Hades. And we hope that it reached many, and that you felt our heart, our compassion, and our heartbeats to help not only us, but see, talking is a form of therapy.
Yes, it is.
So as we talk and we minister and we help you, we're helping ourselves.
Absolutely.
We're helping ourselves. So as we start to wrap this up, We thank you for your time. We appreciate the time.
Thank you for your
We thank you
support.
for your support, your kind words. And we just want to say thank you. We truly do. We want to say thank you. Again, I'm Brandy.
And I'm Jan. And I guess we can conclude, but I know you said you want to talk about how we overcame. We overcome day
Go
by
ahead.
day.
That's it.
With the help of God,
That's
you know,
it.
and good support system, because it's very important to stay connected to the right people,
That's
healthy
right.
people
That's right.
who have overcome and
That's
have come
it.
through things.
That's it.
Even like she said, we went
That's
through.
right.
I went through grief counseling.
Yes.
I had to go through it
Yes.
because not only are you
Yes.
grieving for yourself, but
Yes.
sometimes you're grieving for your children
That's
too.
it.
And that's a lot to carry
That's
when you're
it.
trying to be that single parent or that
That's it.
single individual,
Amen.
and you're trying to uphold and keep going. And
That's
you
it.
have to take time to rest.
You do.
And you have to take time, ask for help.
That's right.
Ask for
That's
help.
right.
And that's one thing I didn't do immediately, but it came to that point because I literally, after I had buried my husband, I started a new job. I bought a house.
Yes.
I was starting my kids in this
Yes.
new school district. I was just one thing after the other.
The blessings did not stop.
Yes,
And
no.
a lot of times we're going to go through things as we wrap this up. The blessings will not stop because where much is given,
much is required.
much is required. But he told me if we ask him, he would hear us.
Yes.
I didn't have to yell. All I had to do was ask him and he would hear us.
Yes.
What we want to leave you with is the seasons that we go through. We go through seasons, we go through chapters. We're either going through, we're coming out, or we're getting ready to go through. The problem is when all three are taking place at one time.
Yes.
Stay tuned for Well Hades, the next show coming up. What you want to say, sis?
We'll see you next time. Well, Hades.
Well, Hades.
We love you all.
We
Thank
love
for
you
your
all.
support.
Thank you.
Praying for all widows out there.
Yes.
You can make it.
Well, Hades.
Yes.
Stay tuned. See you later.
Great night.